Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to welcome everyone to our second session of Entrepreneurship 101. Again, we have a great crowd this evening, and we're really excited because we have 350 people joining via webcast. Tonight we have a fantastic speaker, the CEO of Mobilicity, David Dobbin, who has quite a vast amount of experience in the entrepreneurship space. But before I get into introducing him, I just wanted to announce one event that we have coming up. On Tuesday, October 11th, which is next Tuesday from noon to 1:30 p.m., we have a Mars Best Practices series on open source. It's called How Open Source Can Ensure Success for Technology Startups. So if you'd like to come hear about how open source can help accelerate your startup, please go to the marsdd.com/events section of the website, and you can register for that event. So again, our speaker this evening is Dave Dobbin from Mobilicity. He's the president and CEO of Mobilicity, where he leads its market growth and development. David was named one of Canada's top 40 under 40 award recipients in 2006. Previously, he was president of Toronto Hydro Telecom Inc., the COO of Telecom Ottawa, project executive at Hydro One Telecom, and vice president of operations at BDO Watson & Associates. He started his career by founding a retail telecommunications chain in Western Canada that I actually remember really well. We would also like to acknowledge that Mobilicity has recently come on as a sponsor for one of our other series that we have here at Mars called Mobile Mondays at Mars. And David was a speaker at one of our events in May. And those videos are also available on the videos page on the website if you're interested. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome Dave Dobbin to the stage.
Thanks for having me here tonight. In talking with the folks from Mars, they wanted me to spend a little bit of time with you talking about entrepreneurship, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what's involved with it. So I thought there were a couple ways to do that with you tonight. The first is a short story about my son, and the second is I'd like to walk you through my resume and the multitude of kicks in the teeth that I've taken over the years that hopefully you can learn from. What do you think? Sound like a good agenda? Great. So how many people, before we get started, how many people in the room are young, coming out of university, looking to start a business, rah, let's go build something that will change the world? Great. How many people in the room are working at a big company, hate the man, and want to do something for themselves? Awesome, even better. All right, great. Just so I know who I'm talking to. So, I have 3 kids. By the way, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, spend time with your kids because it's really easy to forget about your family, but that's another story. But my son, when he was 2 years old, actually taught me the greatest lesson I have ever had about entrepreneurship. He was 2 years old, and we had in our kitchen, we had a water cooler. You know the water cooler with the thing, bubbles and all that sort of thing? And the boy loved to get water out of the water cooler. So one day, he's standing in front of the water cooler, and he's got his little kiddie cup, and he's taking a drink, and he's about 40 sips in, and my wife gets a little frustrated, and she says, "Matthew, stop doing that." Because what she's thinking is the kid's going to roll through 18 diapers and it's going to be, a real pain trying to change all these diapers. So the kid looks at her and says, "No," he keeps drinking, right? So my wife walks up to my 2-year-old son and she takes the little cup away from him. And she says, "Matthew, you're done. You're not having any more." And she puts the cup on the counter. She goes away and she does her thing. She comes back 10 minutes later. And you know those mega blocks, Lego blocks things, the big Lego blocks? Have you ever looked at one of those? They're hollow inside. The boy's got one of those flipped over, and he's standing in front of the water cooler, and so my wife, God bless her, she takes the mega blocks away, and she puts the mega blocks up on the counter, and she goes away, and she goes back to her office, and she works. She comes back up 10 minutes later, and any of you have kids with Fisher-Price little people? You ever turn a little person over and look at it? It's hollow inside. Kids drink. This is a true story. So she takes that away from him. After a couple hours of this, of her taking every possible vessel that will hold water away from the 2-year-old boy, she comes around the corner, true story, he has his slipper off. And he's standing in front of the water cooler. Pay that. This, my friends, is what being an entrepreneur is all about. It's about never stopping, no matter what, never quitting, never giving up, believing in what you're doing, and following through on that vision no matter what anybody tells you, even your mom, right? Doesn't matter. So, when you look at all of the different businesses that we get involved in and all the different businesses that get started up, there's many ways to look at it. There's many different businesses get started up. I will tell you that the best mousetrap does not always win. The best idea is not always successful. In fact, you can have the best mousetrap in the world. I was telling a joke earlier with the folks from Mars. You may have built the best mousetrap in the world. It catches the mouse, flips the mouse over, skins it, puts a little bit of heat on that little bugger, cooks him up, right, and serves him on a white plate. But if nobody's eating mice, it doesn't matter, right? If there's no market for your product, it doesn't matter. If people don't know about your product, it doesn't matter. If you can't get the vision that you're trying to project to whoever your audience may be across to them, none of that matters. So, lesson number one from my career is that the most important skill that you can possess as an entrepreneur is the ability to sell, right? The ability to make a sale. Now, what's interesting about the ability to make a sale is that you can go to university and you can get a degree in biotechnology. You can get a degree in education. You can get a degree in molecular science. And you can get all sorts of degrees. There's not one university in this country that actually has a class or a course with a diploma on how to close a deal. Yet it's the most important skill you're going to have, right? It's the single most important skill you're going to have. And why is it the most important skill? Because all of your stakeholders, everybody who's involved in your business, you've got to sell. Does everybody know the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder and does everybody understand a stakeholder? Okay. So your stakeholders, it can be the financial community, it can be your shareholders, it can be your investors, it is your employees and the people that you work with. Everybody needs to understand what you're selling, how you're selling it, and what it's going to do for them. So remember that as I tell you my story, because at the end of the day, the first skill that I learned in being an entrepreneur was I learned how to sell, right? So I get asked the question, where did you learn how to sell? When I was in university, for the people that are tired of working for the man and a little bit older in their careers, in university I worked at Majestic Electronics. And everybody remember Majestic Electronics? Yeah, there you go. I worked there, I sold televisions for a living. I put myself through school selling TVs. And that was where I learned how to close a deal. That's where I learned how to talk to a consumer or talk about a product or a service and make that something compelling that somebody wanted to buy. I was, how I got started in my own business, I was sitting at home one night. I lived in Calgary, Alberta at the time. And by the way, Carrie's from Alberta, and there ain't no woman like an Alberta woman. So there you go. Let's give her a round of applause. So she started right at 6 o'clock. It's an Alberta girl. So I was sitting in my apartment, and an article came on the news that night that AGT was the predecessor to TELUS. They were the phone company at the time. AGT, they're having big troubles with their union. And the union's stronghold in their business was in the phone stores. So way back when, before mobile phones were out there in big ways and all those sort of things, people used these things with wires attached to them. And they attached it and they made calls like that. And the phone company used to rent these phones to people. So, you used to pay actually $3 a month and you'd rent your phone from Bell or AGT or whoever your phone company was. So the union's really strong in these phone stores, and TELUS decides they're going to break the union. So in one day they announced that they're going to close every phone store in the entire province of Alberta. Entire province. Every phone store is closing. And this was the moment that my career as an entrepreneur started because, and maybe it was because I'd had a couple of beers, I don't know, but I said to myself, wow, all the phone stores closing, this sounds like an opportunity for somebody, right? So the next day, I went to the mall, closest mall to my house, and I went to the AGT phone center and I looked at it, and I looked at, here they are, and they're in the corner of the mall, and there was a little 300 square foot t-shirt store next to the phone center that had gone bankrupt. So again, I don't know what possessed me. I went to the mall manager. I said, hey, can I rent that store? The mall manager said to me, do you have credit? I said, I'm 21, I have no credit, right? I don't have credit. And he said, well, we can't rent it to you. And I said, well, is there any other arrangement that we can make that I can get that store? And I discovered this thing called percentage rent. And what percentage rent is the landlord actually takes a percentage of your sales when you're in the mall as rent. So if you sell $10,000, they take $1,000, and whatever it is, you get more successful, they make more. That's the deal I made with the mall. I rented that, I had a bit of money in the bank. It's great, I got some phones. Long story short, I rolled up the window on the store, the gate on the store on the first day, and it was the day after the AGT phone center closed. I had $9 in my pocket, and I remember that, $9, and I had a $100 float in the till, and that's what I had. And I was alone, and I knew nothing about retail. I knew nothing about phones. I knew nothing about virtually anything. But because of the market vacuum created by AGT leaving the market, aside from my faults, it worked, right? Because people thought I was the phone store. So they lined up, and it was great. It was fantastic. And a year later, I had 5 stores. And a year after that, I had 14 stores. And money was coming in like crazy. And I was 23, and I had cash, right? I was flush, right? It was great, right? And this is when the really hard entrepreneurship lessons started, right? So that chain was called the Good Guys Cellular, and it was really making a lot of money. It was doing really well. I was selling cell phones back then. By the way, I'm very proud of this. I sold the first Motorola flip phone in Alberta, right? I don't know if anybody remembers the flip phone. It was a really big, bulky piece of technology. I sold the first one for, are you ready for this? It was $5,000 for the Motorola flip phone. I'm not kidding. I made $2,000 on the sale. It was good. It was good. Minutes were $1.50, right? A minute, right? And I made a 10% residual on those minutes. It was awesome. Right? It was great. It was great. So that was going really well, and I committed the first entrepreneur's mistake, right? I lost my focus. I got distracted, right? So what happened? I had lots of money, right? What do you want to do when you have lots of money? You want to diversify your business and your interests, right? You want to open up more. You want to get into other things that are really cool and all that sort of stuff. That's what I did. So I had a staff of people at the time that were phoning, they were telemarketing people for cell phones. So you want to buy a cell phone, you want to buy a cell phone. I figured it was a good idea to expand that and go to 150 people in a call center at one point, right? And employ all those people and buy all the technology involved with that. By the way, the call center business is really, really hard. Don't do it. It's really hard, really hard. I, as an offshoot of that, because I had all the people on the phones and I had the technology, I decided there were all sorts of other businesses that I can get into. Long and short of it, I opened 9 or 10 other businesses on the back of my cell phone stores, and what I did is I destroyed my cash flow. Right? Because I had all these startups that were running simultaneously, sucking cash out of the stores, and it almost bankrupted me. Right? It almost bankrupted me. So the lesson is maintain focus. Figure out what you're doing, get really, really good at it, be better at it than anybody else, and don't lose focus on your core business. Right? Now, why did I get out of the phone store business? Well, because remember I sold that phone for $5,000. By the time 1996 rolled around, phones were $0, right? And we were making about $20 per phone, right? So it had gone from $2,000 per phone to $20 per phone. And at that point I figured, this is not a great business model for the retailer anymore. So I sold the stores. And actually the stores are still there today. If you ever go to Western Canada, they're owned by one of Canada's major cell phone stores that had some great scale. So they did really well with them. But after that, I went to work for a consulting company. And we had a business that we started at the consulting company that worked out pretty well for us. It was called ShareTel. So the long and short of that story, way back when in the 90s, there was this thing called long distance. And when you needed to phone somebody that was far away, you had to pay them a fee to make that phone call, right? Now, if you're with Mobilicity today, you don't pay long distance anymore, but that's my ad for Mobilicity. But back then, long distance was really expensive. So, I come from Western Canada, so, you can be on a farm in Western Canada, you can be phoning a farm in 1996, 30 kilometers away, and you're paying $1 a minute for that call, right? It was really, really expensive. So the government deregulated long distance at the time to introduce competition into the market. And we started a business called a sharing group. And what we did, we sold long distance plans to people, and we bundled their usage together to get a larger volume discount, right? So we started with literally no money. We went out, we sold long distance, and we bundled these people together, took their money, and turned that into the second largest switchless reseller in Canada. It became huge. Now, this is the second lesson of entrepreneurship, right? So the first lesson is to keep your focus. The second lesson is never become slave to a supplier, right? So what happened? Well, our long distance was all bought through one supplier called MTS, right? And they're still there, they're a phone company in Manitoba. We started to become a very large piece of their revenue. We were, in fact, the largest long distance company customer in Manitoba. We're the largest long distance customer in Western Canada. This starts to represent a really big problem on the customer list of the phone company, right? So now how did that manifest itself? Well, things started to happen. Rates started to change, things started to happen. We had one supplier, we were completely at their mercy. If they were slow to provision, if they didn't make things happen in time, this affected us because our customers were affected, didn't affect them, right? Never become slave to a supplier, because if you only have one supplier, they can make your life exceptionally difficult, right? Now, long and short of it, I could tell the story for days, but they ended up buying the company from us. So we sold it to our supplier, which was a neat trick, but it was a very, very difficult time. After that, I moved to Toronto and got a job actually working at the consulting company again and doing that. And we did work for electrical utilities. And at the time, it was 1999, 2000, the electricity industry in Ontario was being restructured. And that's a whole nother super long topic to talk about, but the long and short of it is that the electric utility was turned into a private business corporation and needed people to start up unregulated businesses for them so they could leverage their assets. So I went to work for Hydro One, and we were building a company called Hydro One Telecom. And that turned into, I got recruited into a new job at Hydro Ottawa, where we started a company called Telecom Ottawa. So the lesson from Telecom Ottawa is it's not always the biggest competitor that wins, it's the competitor that has the best execution that wins. So I'll tell you a great story. I show up in Ottawa, I work for the utility, I'm employee number one at this telecom company. And the vision, remember I said, be able to articulate the vision? We're gonna build a fiber optic network across the city of Ottawa, and we're gonna provide services to all of the public sector institutions in the city so that we can do good in the community. What do you think? Good vision? Try telling that to people when you're the one employee at the company from the electric utility, right? Try telling that to people. Nobody believes you, right? You're from Hydro, you're gonna build what? You guys provide electricity. What do you know about telecommunications, right? How are you gonna do this? It was really, really difficult. Here's where the ability to sell came in, right, and started to pay dividends. Now, when you start your businesses and you've got your businesses started, salespeople are going to come and they're going to talk to you and they're going to tell you that your product isn't good enough. They're going to tell you need more stuff. They're going to tell you need to get a bigger discount. They're going to tell you don't have enough brochures, material, all that sort of stuff. It's not true. If you can sell your vision. So here's what I did. I went to the public school board. They had the most schools in the region. And I said, hi, I'm Dave from Hydro. We're going to build a fiber optic network. Would you like to be our customer? We'll give you a really good deal. They said, we're in a long-term contract with Bell. So no. So I turned around, I went up the street to the Catholic school board. And what I discovered is that the Catholic school boards really don't like the public school boards, right? There's a bit of a rivalry there. So I go into the Catholic school board and I said, hey, we're going to build this fiber optic network. It's going to go to every school, library, hospital, and the public guys are interested. And the Catholic guys said, well, you mean they're going to get it before us? And I said, well, yeah. Yeah. Right? And they said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, this is what it is. And I explained it. And I said, this is how much you're going to pay. And they said, well, that's a pretty good deal. And I said, yeah, you should be first. He said, I agree. So then I had the Catholic school board. And so the deal was we signed a letter of intent. And you get your first customer, you sign the letter of intent. So the letter of intent read, I'm going to install this network. It's going to work like I say it works. If it works like I say it works, then you sign a long-term contract. Right? So it was a good deal for everybody, long and short of it. But we did that with the Catholics. Now I have the ability to go to the French Catholic school board. Then once we had a couple of school boards, we went to the hospitals. And what we said to the hospitals was, the schools have a faster network than you, right? What? How can the schools have a faster network? So it was all about sales ability. What we did, the long and short of it, we had Bell, big Bell Canada, competing with us in every single deal. Every single deal. And Bell Canada's position at the time was, we've had these customers for 75 years. They are long-term customers with Bell Canada. They love us. We have a great relationship with them. What I did, I came in with some salesmanship and a disruptive technology, and I completely turned the business model around. So what we did in Ottawa is we had 0% market share in the public sector in 2001 when I started. By 2003, we had 100% market share. After that, I came to Toronto. Now, the lesson when I came to Toronto, and this, the lessons are going to get bigger and bigger as we go along. The lesson in Toronto, and you hear a lot of people say this, is it's all about the people, right? It's all about the people. Now, I cannot stress this to you enough. The people that you surround yourself with in your company, when you're starting up, when you have nothing, are the most important people that you'll ever have around you in your career. Because these are the people that need to translate your vision, your drive, into results. These are the most important people you'll ever have. Trust me, if you've got a VP of sales, how many engineers in the room? Okay, you can't sell. So you're going to have to hire a VP of sales, right? You have to hire yourself a VP of sales. If that VP of sales actually can't make a deal or close a business, right, that's a problem, right? Now the problem with salespeople, anybody in the room a salesperson? Okay, forgive me for what I'm about to say. The problem with salespeople is the best sale they usually make is when they get their job. Right? You got to find a really good one. So when I took over at Toronto Hydro Telecom, the management team was fractured. It wasn't great people in the positions. So when I got there were 12 managers at the time. And are you ready for a little bit of Dobbin insanity? There were 12 managers. I walked in. I'm the new guy. I fired 9. Right? Just clean house. Right? Everybody. So I went out and I hired people. And what I did is I went out and I specifically hunted down people that had the skill sets that I wanted to build the business. And the skill sets that I look for in somebody that's building a business, I look for somebody that wants to play on a team. Right? I look for somebody that's open to take criticism. I look for somebody who's able to change their opinion based upon the availability of new information. By the way, you'd be very surprised how few people like that there are in the world, right? You've really, really got to dig for them. What we did, we changed out all the people, give you some stats on how well that worked. The year before, the company had 9 customers. The year after, we picked up 342, right? That's incredible growth. That's the difference that people will make. Our cost of provisioning, our cost of goods on the financial statements, before the new people was $92,000 a customer. Put good people in, it dropped to $12,000 per customer. Same job, right? This is the difference that people can make in your organization. So my advice to you is find yourself the best people you can to put in your organization. Do not accept mediocrity. Don't accept excuses. Only accept results. This is my advice to you. Now that's very easy to say because we're all human beings, right? And you know what, you get to know people and it's hard and all those sorts of things, but you've got to make tough decisions sometimes in your career. Just be prepared for that to happen. Then I went from there, Toronto Hydro, to my last job, which is at Mobilicity. How many people have heard of Mobilicity? How many people have a Mobilicity phone? I like you. Now, the lesson at Mobilicity is you got to believe. You got to believe in what you're doing, because if you don't believe, nobody will, and if nobody else is believing, you'll never move the stone from where it needs to be moved. So, start at Mobilicity. Imagine this scenario. We're going to build a brand new wireless company in a recession in Canada, which is dominated by three massive oligopolistic titans, right? Let's go finance it, right? You want to talk about a tough challenge, right? And you know, I remember a meeting in January of 2009 where the head of one of the banks in Canada actually stood in front of us and said, "You will never get that business financed. It will never happen." Right? You will never get that business financed. It will never happen. So, you got to believe. We believed. It wasn't that we couldn't get the business financed, it was that the head of that bank we were talking with hadn't thought about the problem long and hard enough and hadn't figured out a creative answer to the problem, right? There's always an answer to the problem if you think long and you think hard enough. So what we did, we needed to build a telecom network. And when you're buying a telecom network, you're usually buying it from a manufacturer in a different country because the Canadian telecom manufacturers are gone, right? So we bought our network from Ericsson. Well, there's this little thing in Sweden called EKN, which is like the Business Development Bank of Canada. And what they do is they do credit insurance on purchases from Swedish companies. So we made a deal with the Swedish government. They'd provide credit insurance that they would back the business because we were buying from a Swedish firm. And then we had to go out and get a bank to back that up. But trust me, it's way easier to get a bank to loan you money when you've got a credit guarantee from a sovereign government, right? So the banks hadn't thought about the process long and hard enough. So, hey, we became experts on international export credit financing law. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But you know, it was just looking at the problem a little bit differently, with a little bit of a different light, and thinking about it and finding a different answer. And you're going to find in your businesses, in every business that I've been involved in, that if you look at the problem a little bit differently, if you change the lens, if you change the question, you can always find a different answer. So I call this playing what if, right? And it's the one, you know, the one on this topic, the one other piece of advice I give you is always play what if, right? Ask yourself the question, what if we did this? What if we changed this? What if we went here? What if we talked to that customer? What if we did this? Never stop asking what if, ever, 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 right? Big, big lesson. And last but not least, you know, a couple of little bits. Always take what people say to you with a grain of salt, and always take what people say to you and use your own judgment on if what they're telling you is true. Let me give you an example. Let's play a game. Who's got a startup? What's your product? What do you do? Come on, quick, elevator pitch, go. You connect homeowners and contractors, right? That's a really lame idea. Has anybody ever told you that? Exactly. It might be a lame idea, but nobody tells you that, right? In my job, so I'm the CEO of Mobilicity. One of the things I wrestle with at work, nobody tells me when I have a dumb idea, right? It's really tough, right? Because I want you to tell me my idea is stupid, because you know what? If the emperor's got no clothes, tell me, right? But nobody does, because when you own the business, they don't want to hurt your feelings. When you're the CEO, they don't want to offend you, so you don't fire them, right? So you got to take what people say to you, and you have to put it through that filter of, am I getting the real story, right? The banks, the finance communities, the angel investors, the VCs, they will all couch things in how they want you to hear them, not the real message. So make sure you step back and get the real message behind what people are saying, right? Now, I know it sounds like I'm a really cynical person, but what you need to be when you're doing all these startups, this one's my I can't even count the number. This is the 5th one that's worked for me. Been a lot that haven't worked. That's been one of the big problems, is when an idea is bad, people aren't willing to tell you that that idea is bad. Now, hey, sorry, I was using you as an example. Your idea might be awesome, right? I don't know, but it was just an example. I apologize. I didn't mean to crush you, right? I feel bad. You look sad. I'm just playing. So that's a really important facet. The other thing that I would tell you is that being an entrepreneur is hard, right? It's really, really difficult. You have this idea, you have this vision. Nobody believes in it, but you're alone. You've got to get customers. You have no money, right? It's hard. It's really, really hard. So if you're going to do this, you need to be prepared for massive amounts of rejection, right? So, for example, fundraising for Mobilicity, I think we called over 180 banks to get it done, and we're told no over and over and over and over and over again when the initial rounds, right? When we started Shartel, looking for partners for international long distance calling, we were told no 250 times over and over. You get a lot of no's. You got to be mentally and emotionally prepared for that. It's hard. You're not going to have any money, right? When you start the business, you're not going to have any money. So those of you who are working for the man, put up your hands again. You're really comfortable now, right? You get like that paycheck thing. It goes away, right? It goes away, and you've got to make that paycheck for yourself. You need to be mentally prepared for that eventuality. The other thing you need to be prepared for, and this is what I'll leave you with, is you need to be prepared to fail, right? Failure is a tough thing to grapple with. It's really, really a difficult thing to grapple with. The massive failure that you might have in your business that wipes everything out, right? It happens. What you got to do is you got to learn from the failure. And here's the most important thing you need to learn from failure. Are you ready for this? It's your fault. No, I know that sounds cruel and mean. It's your fault. When your business fails, it's your problem. It's something you did. It's your fault. You were wrong. What have you learned? Right? What have you learned? Let me tell you about the worst business situation I was ever in. You want to hear about the worst one I was ever in? Like the worst? Like gut-wrenching, vomit-inducing? Here we go. So I'm at Good Guys. I've got my focus back. I'm running the business. Everything's going good. And I think it's going good. And my controller comes to me and she says, her name was Bonnie Christensen, great lady. She comes to me and says, Dave, I don't know where the cash is going. Our cash is evaporating. And I said, what do you mean our cash is evaporating? Our sales are at record highs. She says, but we have no cash. Went on and on and on, right? It got worse and worse and worse. Ran out of cash. Here I am. I have 14 stores across Western Canada, multi-millions of dollars worth of sales, and I have no money, right? How does this happen, right? How we investigate, we're in the systems, we can't figure it out. It gets so bad that one day I'm trying to make payroll. I don't have any money. But you know what I do have? I have my GST account that I've got to remit GST payments, right? Well, what's more important, paying the government or paying your people? Paying your people. So you know what? I dipped into the GST account. I paid my people. But I still got a problem. I'm losing cash. Next payroll comes around, I dipped into the GST account again. Paid the people out of it. Eventually, the GST account was empty. Now, if any of you have met the tax man, they don't like this, right? I've still got a problem, though, because I'm still bleeding cash. So I hire a forensic accountant to look into the situation, and the forensic accountant taking time. While the forensic accountant is taking time, I'm still having to make payroll, and there's no more cash left. So what do? There's these things called source deductions. The income tax EI CPP that gets taken off your paycheck. I stop remitting that to the government, right? I don't have any money, right? I can't do it, but I want to pay the people, right? I'm not taking a paycheck. I'm eating craft dinner, right? But I want to pay the people. I'm emptying my bank account, I'm doing this sort of thing. Eventually, the accountant comes back and they found it. What it was a group of my employees were stealing from me. And what they were doing is they were receiving goods at the warehouse. They were changing the computer so the goods looked like, it was a long, complex scheme. They were selling stuff out of the back of the warehouse and pocketing the cash, right? Long story short. To the tune of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, what I did, because I'm a good Western boy, be honest, right? I marched down to the Canada Government Office in Calgary and I walked in and I said, I'd like to speak to whoever's in charge, please. Right? I was 25, I was braver than I am now. And I walked in and I sat down with the fella and I explained the situation, I explained what happened, and he said to me, "You're gonna pay us, right?" And I said, yeah, I'm gonna pay you. He says, no, you're gonna pay us now. And I said, but I have no money. And he said, "You got a house, right?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "And I notice in your shareholders agreement, your mother has 2% of your company." I said, "Yeah." She says, "Your mother's got a house, doesn't she?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, we're gonna liquidate, right? We're gonna take it." So here I am. I leave the building after my nice conversation with this fellow, and I'm weeping, right? I'm weeping in the car, right? Grown man, how do you feel? You're gonna lose your house. By the way, I had a 2-year-old daughter and a pregnant wife at home, right? I'm gonna lose the house. My mom is gonna lose her house, right? This is, are you feeling it? Are you feeling the gut? You with me, right? So how did I get out of this one, right? Long and short is I went to my local, how do I get out of this? I thought around, I went to my local MP, I told my MP about what had happened, et cetera, et cetera. It had happened that my local MP, I had donated the phones that he used when he was dialing, or when he was during his election campaign. I had donated the phones to his campaign. He said, "Let me see what I can do for you." He made some phone calls. Next week, they called me and they put me on a payment plan, right? Now, it took me 2 years to pay the government back, right? But I paid the government every penny that I owed them. Paid them every cent they were owed, everything came back to them. But the long and short of it is I came right to the brink. I came right to the brink. And that's what being an entrepreneur is about. You're gonna be faced with these moments, right? You're gonna be faced with these times when everything's on the line and you gotta think. You gotta think. You can't let yourself get shocked. You gotta stand up and you gotta think about how are you gonna power through these situations, right? Now, you want more stories like that? I got lots more. Right, but lots more. But that's just one of the ones that's on the top of the mind. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you might have. I know I might have disappointed some people that were here to talk about cell phone applications. I apologize, but it's about entrepreneurship. So if anybody's got a question, I think we have a mic.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you a question to start first, and then we have mics set up. If you can go to the mic so the webcasters can hear, and we might take a question or two from the webcast. But I'm going to turn your what if question back at you and ask you, what if you hadn't become an entrepreneur?
I would probably be working at a bank somewhere, right? I was going to be in commerce and work with financial models, and it's head-crushingly boring stuff. But that's what I was going to do. I would probably be working at a bank. Now, that being said, I've done a lot of financing now, and investment bankers make an immense amount of money. So that might have been a good thing. I don't know. But I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't go to that career now. I wouldn't do it because there's an adrenaline rush that you get from building a business and from doing things like this. Like I go back home to the West and I see my stores. My stores are still there that I started, and I know they're there. And I go to Ottawa and I know that the schools are hooked up with something that I did. And I drive down streets in Toronto and you can see the cables that I put up. And I talk to Mobilicity customers, and people tell me stories that just make me so proud of building stuff. Right? There was a guy. We did a Mobilicity thing where. We had a customer meet where customers could come and we talked, and I did a little talk with our customers. And at the end, a young man got up he was from China. He just immigrated from China, and he said to me, Mr. Dobbin, thank you. You have this unlimited China calling plan. My wife and kids are back in China, and because of you, I can talk to them every day. Come on. Like, this is why we do this stuff. We change lives. That's what we do, right? I mean, this is why you're an entrepreneur. You change stuff, right? Amen, right? Right? Sorry, I'm getting a little teary there. Right?
So I know everyone's shy, but I will come up to the mic. Come up to the mic.
We need you at the mic. We've got a
I see
webcast
two.
going on, so if you have a question.
So
you can-
Dave, I asked Dave what he does in his free time before he took the stage, and he said, all he does is work. So one of the ways that he thought he could actually get a vacation was by taking a motorcycle trip across Canada with a Mobilicity
That's actually a
crew.
good story. It's a good story.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you wanna
What I
tell
do
us
in my
it?
spare time, I listen to my wife. Right? That's what I do in my spare time.
That's a good story.
I do what my wife tells me to do. Right? No, the motorcycle trip story, when we started Mobilicity, the first year I started late in the year, and I said to my shareholders, I want to take a vacation, and they said, well, you're just starting a business. Do you think you should be taking any time off? And I said to the shareholders, okay, I won't take any time off. And then the next year came around, the summer came, and I said, I'm going to take my vacation. They said, geez, Dave, you're building a national cell phone network. Do you think you should take any time off? This is kind of big money. And I said, okay, I won't take any time off. And then the next year came around, and it's summer, and I said, I'm going to take a vacation. They said, geez, Dave, you just launched service in Toronto. You just started selling. Do you really think you should take a vacation? I thought, gosh, shucks, I guess I shouldn't take a vacation. 3 years without a vacation. This year came around, and I knew what was coming, right? I anticipated, right? So what I did is I planned a cross-Canada motorcycle trip, and I incorporated it with Mobilicity. So we went to all of our Mobilicity cities, and we made long-distance calls in between to prove our phones were cheaper than the big 3 phones. So I got a trip across the country, and it wasn't a vacation. Yeah. See? Think around the problem, folks. Yes, sir.
A vacation you can write off. That's
Not me, unfortunately.
You mentioned in your talk about the importance of having good salespeople or being able to sell.
Yep.
In the circles that I came across in inventing and creating the project that I'm here to try and get across, I'm in the company of geeks and nerds and engineers, and there's not a whole lot of salesmen between them.
Bad salespeople.
Right. So in that environment, do you have any suggestions of how geeks and nerds and engineers would go out and find good sales partners that would help sort of complete that circle?
Well, finding good sales partners is one thing, but what's more important is that you learn the ability to sell. The geek needs to learn how to sell, right? All selling is translating what you're doing into language that's easily understandable by everybody that's involved, right? That's all it is. So, you need to learn how to be able to translate what you're saying to a banker. I don't know what you do, but let's say it's, molecular biology. Trust me, the investment banker on Wall Street has no idea how molecular biology works. They have no idea. They understand money, they don't understand. So you have to translate that into something they can understand, and you have to show them how they make money by doing that. With a customer, the consumer product, you have to show the consumer how that product benefits them. You have to translate the product or the service that you're selling into something tangible. So, my advice would be learn how to sell yourself. How to do that, I don't know. I wish there was a university degree somewhere about selling, because that'd make life really, really easy. But there's not. It's really just experience and getting up there. The last thing as far as sales partners goes is there are a lot of recruiting firms, great recruiting firms out there that specialize in salespeople. Find a good one and get in there and take some advice on what a good salesperson is. Right? It's the single hardest person to hire. The single hardest person to hire in your organization is a salesperson. Single hardest person. You know what? Accounting, real easy to measure if your accountant's working or not. Do I have financial statements by the 10th of the month? All right, I got it. Are they accurate? Woohoo, right? Right? Operations people, really easy. Did they deliver on time? Did they get it in? All that sort of stuff. Salespeople are tougher to measure because sales is such a soft skill. So, and I could give you a dissertation on how to manage salespeople if you like, but it's all about targets, and hitting targets and not accepting excuses, right? Excuses are like noses. Everybody's got one and they smell. Right? Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Dave. I have two questions related.
Yes?
The first one is, which programs of study you think are the most suitable for salespeople? And the second one is related to you wanted to hire flexible team working people.
Yep.
How did you do the hiring process? How did you find out who was flexible, who was a team player in a short period of time?
Yeah, there's a saying that I have, and it's a horrible, cold, awful saying, but feel free to use it if you like. It's called FIFO, fire early, fire often. You can feel free to use that, right? But there's a lot of trial and error with that. You got to spend in the key roles. You got to spend a lot of time with people before you hire them, understanding what they're about and what they do and how they do it. I like to look at somebody's family life and what their family life is like and how their family is constructed, how they deal with people. I like to look at how they interact with other people, their peers, what they interact with their families. That's a big teller on how people act. If you want a great book, my favorite book on teams is actually by a guy named Patrick Lencioni. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, you should. It's a management Bible. It's about an hour read. You'll love it. It's great. But that's that. As far as studies for salespeople, that's tough because great salespeople come from every side of technology of the world.
Even engineering?
Even engineering. You know what? If you get an engineer that can actually translate what they're producing into language that people can easily understand, they're killers, right? I mean, look at Mike Lazaridis. What a fantastic salesman, right? What a fantastic salesman. But have you ever heard Lazaridis speak? He translates it, right? He talks about it's about battery life. It's about it's about the propagation of radio waves and how they only go so far, right? It's about translating that into something that people can easily understand.
Thank you.
You need to go to the mic. Yes, sir.
Can I just take it out?
Oh, he's taking it out.
Okay.
This is going to be a big, long, complex question.
First of all, let me briefly introduce myself to you guys. And I'm Luke. I'm from South Korea about 3 months ago. And the reason why I came all the way down to Canada from South Korea, it's like 16 hours and like a flying distance, is because I got accepted into Rotman MBA.
Hey, congratulations.
And then there might be some people over here and then who went to Rotman MBA, or there might be some people like who are going through MBA, like Dominic over here, and then he's gone maybe. And so like I was taking some courses during the month of August, and I was going through pre-courses, math and finance and
Get to the
accounting,
question.
and I
You're
realized
losing
that
them. Get to the question. You're losing them.
yeah, I realized that MBA doesn't seem to provide me a lot of benefit, especially when I want to go for my own business, because I want to run my own business. So that's why I decided to defer a year from my MBA. And do you think MBA is essential and really important to get your business off the ground and then see it prosperous and successful? Or
I think people with MBA degrees are very, very valuable people, whether they're starting their own business or whether they're helping you in your business. They provide critical analysis to your business that you might not generally think about. I am not an MBA, however, I hire a lot of MBAs.
Okay.
I dropped out.
Can I ask you?
Okay. There's a question in the back.
Dude, it's true.
Okay.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, if I may.
Thank you.
You mentioned I think it was your 6th lesson that you should take everything that people tell you with a grain of salt.
Yes,
And you said that what you should do is try and get their real message.
yes.
Now my question is, what techniques do you use to get that real message? Because we're not psychic, right? We can't read their mind.
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Ask questions. The thing, a lot of entrepreneurs, the one thing about all of us, and you won't want to admit this, and I'm going to take a deep, dark look into your soul right now. Entrepreneurs all have a little bit of ego, right? You believe that you're smarter, faster, better than the rest of the population, therefore your idea is going to go. And by God, you're probably right, right? But that ego sometimes blinds you to what other people are saying. And the only way you can get by that is by asking questions, right? Why do you think my product sucks? Why do you think my product is good? Why do you think my service is good? How do you think it could go? Would you buy it? All those sorts of questions. Spend more time listening than you do talking, and it will pay back in spades.
Thank you.
Hi.
I feel like a sage old man here. I'm not that old. I'm only 40. Come on.
Dave, thank you for the talk. I just have a quick question to ask you to expand a little bit on what you spoke about when you pick the people that you start your business with.
Yes.
You know, I've gotten some advice, but I thought if you could expand a little bit more on, you know, if you have, what specifically you may look for as well on top
Yeah,
of what
by the way, when it comes to picking people, like, just so we're all like, you know, we're amongst friends here, like, I'm just as bad at anyone as picking people. I've made some doozer mistakes at picking people, right? Like, you know, like whoever's phone just rang. You know, I've made horrible mistakes with picking people. It's the hardest thing to do in a business is get the right people. You know, and as often as you're going to get it right, you're going to get it wrong, right? Because, you know, there's a lot of, when you're starting a business isn't a 9-to-5 job. Right? Starting a business isn't something that you do part-time. Starting a business is not something you can kind of do. You've got to devote your whole soul to it. And the people that you're with, if the business is going to be successful, need to devote their whole soul to it too. And it's really hard to find people that'll devote their whole soul. And a lot of people, when they're looking for a job, will tell you that they'll devote their whole soul, but they really won't. So it's tough. And I honestly don't have a lot of ideas for you other than get to know who they really are, right? Look at who they are in their lives and what they've done and how they've conducted themselves in situations. It's really easy to turn tail and run from a tough situation. That's not what you want around you.
Fair enough. Just a quick follow-up question. So one of the pieces of advice that I've gotten is to do some sort of like trial period
Sure,
when
great
you're
idea.
starting business. Have you done that in the past? Have you seen that work?
Yeah, it's called probation. Every employee gets it, 3 months.
No, I mean not with the employee, but with like founders, like co-founders and that type of thing.
Oh God, I don't know about that, right? Anytime you get into trial share ownership, that smells like a lawsuit to me, right? Well, I'm not a lawyer, right?
Fair enough. Thanks for the advice.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dave. Thank
Hi.
you for coming tonight.
Where are you?
One of the questions I found interesting as you've gone through this journey of your telecom life, when you started your business way back out west and decided to grow it to the size that it is now, when you came to Toronto to start Mobilicity, if you didn't have that experience back in out west or hadn't done that in the past, would you have still continued to pursue the telecom industry here in Toronto? Does that make sense? Would you still felt that because there was a need for it to be available to?
Yeah, I don't. Yes, the answer to your question is yes, because there's a clear business opportunity, right? There is a clear and distinct business opportunity there that makes a lot of economic sense. So yes, the answer is yes. But that being said, I don't think of myself as a telecom guy, right? I'm just a guy who happens to be in telecom, right? So it's you know, remember I was executive vice president of an electric utility. That was boring.
And just a quick follow-up. So now you had said that if you ever get the opportunity to have a Mobilicity, it's the greatest thing because, in fact, you know, you own in everything. It's 100%. When you came in, obviously, to Toronto or primarily Ontario, that it's actually owned by 3 or 4 organizational companies, and you were able to get into it because you kind of played the David and Goliath position. This is my words, not yours. Now that you are at that position, and you are now probably one of a key competitor with this organization, do you worry about, say, someone within here trying to do the same thing and coming up underneath?
Every day.
Do you try to defend that, or you just that's just the world of business as it is?
Every day you worry about that. Every day, right? If you think there's not somebody who's smarter and faster than you coming behind you, you're an idiot. Right?
Thank you.
There's always somebody quicker and smarter than you are. Always. Remember I said ego can kill you?
Yeah.
That's ego and hubris if you think you're the best. Right? It's not right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay?
Hi.
How about 2 more questions?
more
And
questions.
then I'm just conscious of the time, and I'm sorry to cut people off, but if Dave will be so kind to stay and answer
Sure.
maybe a few more. I know he's starving, but so sorry about that, guys. Just maybe 2 more questions.
Hi, my name is Jeff Fung, and I started a business that helps people find lawyers online. It's called My Lawbid, if anybody wants to check it out. And if you need a lawyer, I'm sorry. But
See? He just sold. Awesome.
Mike.
There you go. Pitched, man. Love it. Love it.
My question
How much do you
is-
charge? What do you do? What's your business model?
We could talk after. My question is, how do you, like, I started this recently, about 3 months ago. How do you convince employees to work for less than market price?
Give them stock.
Anything else? Besides that, what happens if you run out
How
of
many
that?
people in the room would be willing to go for Jeff's company for less than pay at going rate? Now, if he gave you stock, would you go? How many? I think you've got yourself a pool of employees, my friend.
We'll talk after. Thank you.
Right? How do you, Jeff, come on, how do you convince people to work for donuts? I don't know, right? I don't know that answer.
I don't know if he was here.
Okay. Both of you, and that's it.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jonathan, and I've started a business that gives medical practice websites to physicians that are templated like a Facebook profile. But my
Great.
question is,
Yes.
with regards to the story you said about employee theft,
Yes.
aside from learning
It's-
to give
here's-
money...
Let me
Sorry?
sum it up for you. And this is really depressing, and you're going to think I'm a really negative person. It's not a question of if your employees are going to steal from you. It's a question of when and how much. Ask your question.
My question is, aside from learning to give money to the politicians, what did you learn from that experience, and did you pick up anything to help you sort of keep an eye on that sort of thing?
Yeah, get really good financial accountants in place. Like, get really, really good ones that are bloodhounds, and watch out for it. Think ahead of what people are going to do, and just watch how they're going to do it to you. You always got to try and be a step ahead. Unfortunately, I would love to live in a world where we could trust everybody as entrepreneurs, as small business owners. If we could trust every employee that came into our store, it'd be great, or into our business, it'd be fantastic. But that's just not how it goes. So you just got to be vigilant, and you got to watch out for it. I promise you, every single one in the room that has a business, I don't care what you do, I promise you, this is so depressing. I promise you, somebody's going to steal from you. It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen, right? Now, hey, peace, don't hate me, right? The most common thing employees steal from their employer, you know what it is?
Pens and papers?
Time.
Time, oh.
Right? Most important thing is time. Let me give you an example. I was walking here today, and I walked by an office, and they had a window in this office, and there was clearly a business down there. It looked like a dental office to me. And there was a lady at her desk, and her computer was facing the window as I walked by. And I stopped, and I looked in the window, and she was playing a video game. Do you think her boss pays her to play a video game? Probably not. Next question.
Thank you.
All right. I'm a Mobilicity subscriber.
Awesome! How do you like the service?
I like it, actually. I call US, call across Canada. It's amazing.
Great.
So thanks.
Welcome to Mobile Freedom.
Thank you. I would like to know, as a startup, how you would go about getting financing, and how you, because capital is scarce, and getting money when there's no money out there, what are the steps you would take in terms of doing that? And number two, when you came to Toronto, what was your mindset in terms of selling to the GTA, like selling to Torontonians, and how you attack that?
Sure. Fundraising's hard. Fundraising, of all of the things you're going to do as a startup company, raising funds is probably the single most difficult thing that you'll have to do. I know at Mobilicity, our initial funds that we raised were really, really hard to do, and even the other companies. I've never had a business that it's been easy to raise money for. It's just never happened. You need to make sure you develop your pitch book, and your pitch book's got to be clean, it's got to be tight, and it's got to tell a story, and it's got to tell a story that's compelling to the investor, right? So you need to make sure that whatever your product is, there's a return to it, and then you can explain that return to the investor. And then start knocking, right? And get ready for a whole lot of knocking and a whole lot of rejection. And it's really hard. And you're right, capital is really tight, and you're going to meet a lot of different kinds of investors. You're going to meet, everybody from the 22% interest guys to the I'll take 60% of your company guys. So it's really, oh, you've met some of them. It's really, really, really difficult. All I can say to you is that keep looking and don't accept a deal that isn't right for you, and don't accept a deal that isn't right long term for your company, right? And that would be it. Selling to the GTA, you know what? Selling is the same no matter where you go, right? Find the customer need and fill it. That's all there is to it.
For your rental needs, netrentals.com.
Yeah, you got to pitch in.
So I just wanted to thank Dave for his awesome, very practical advice, and it's really an honor for us to have a real entrepreneur tell it like it is and give such valuable advice to our crowd here.